Vet some. Stay in the fight.
Hello, America. Welcome back to VetSum. Brian Lynch here with Joe Wood, Vice President of Strategy and Operations at Boulder Crest Foundation. Joe is a former staff sergeant in the intelligence field in your United States Army, and we are here today to talk about the foundation, mental wellness, and several other things. Joe, it's great to have you on today. Thank you for making the time.
It's great to be here, Brian. Thanks.
So, Joe, Boulder Crest, tell us about the foundation, how it got started, and how you got involved.
Yeah, we're a national nonprofit headquartered out of Bluemont, Virginia, founded by Ken Falk, who's a 21-year Navy EOD tech. He and his wife. Long story, but they recognize that there are a lot of veterans who are struggling, and active duty military as well. And the prevailing narrative in our country, and I would say in the world, is that when you struggle, when you have something traumatic happen in your life, you're destined to live a diminished version of your old self. And that just is not acceptable for Ken and his wife, for myself, for all the people that work at Boulder Crest, that when you have the kind of experiences that we have in the military, you certainly can go down a path of post-traumatic stress and it negatively affecting you all of your life. Or if you know better, if you know that there's a possibility for better, you can grow. And so Boulder Crest exists to share the science of post-traumatic growth, which is a term that was coined back in 1995 by Dr. Rich Tedeschi out of UNC Charlotte. It establishes both a process and a set of results that you can experience. And we know that if a process exists, it can be trained. And so that's what we do. Is we don't do therapy. We're not clinicians. We do training programs to teach people how to experience post-traumatic growth in their life after trauma. We also have some family programs as well, recognizing that most people in the military are constantly out training and deployed and all of those things. And it's hard to reintegrate back with your family. So we have a family rest and reconnection program, which is kind of how it all started.
Right, right. So, Joe, tell us about your background. 9 years in the Army, in the intelligence field. You were up for a promotion. It was time for you to move on. What was your experience in the Army, and then what brought you to Boulder Crest?
One of my early mentors told me that to be successful in the Army, you have to volunteer for absolutely every opportunity that comes up. And I did. My first assignment was in Korea. Then I went to Fort Gordon, Georgia, and I ran one of the first UAV exploitation teams in the Army. Was not getting along with the command team, but re-enlisted to go to Hawaii, which was a really hardship tour. I say facetiously.
Yeah.
And then while I was in Hawaii, I worked primarily with Marines doing expeditionary warfare stuff. And then I volunteered to go to Iraq, spent some time in Iraq, came back. And then as an Army guy, had the great opportunity to live on an aircraft carrier for a while out in the Pacific, the USS Kitty Hawk.
You only say it was a great opportunity because you didn't have to do it very long, right?
Right. That's right.
Most Marines and Navy would say otherwise, but
yeah. And then I realized, I went to AIT to learn my job, and then I went out in the real world to do my job, but it was completely different from what I learned in the schoolhouse. So I always had this itch to get back and be an educator and teach in AIT. So I went back to Fort Huachuca and I was an instructor for a few years before I finally got out of the Army. And I stayed there for a while because we were starting a new intel discipline and I happened to be deeply involved in it. It just made sense for me to stay. So after the Army, I spent about 10 years doing government contracting, very closely tied with what my MOS was in the Army.
So you get out, you transition. Did you transition well, or were there some speed bumps?
Well, I think on the surface, I transitioned well, and I think most people who watched it happen would say that it went well. I got out, as a staff sergeant. I got out, and I was within 6 months. I was vice president of a contract company. Short period after that, I was chief operating officer. So I was getting promoted fast, but I was chasing money, power, and respect at the time. And I think the mask I was wearing, everybody saw success, but deep down inside, I was struggling mightily with loss of identity, loss of belonging, all sorts of things. And I had to go through a grieving period, which I did not do very well, but I did hide it very well.
which a lot of veterans do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, but you
Um,
you also spent some time. I think it was perhaps it was after that when you were the owner and CEO of the Veteran First Responder Business Creation. So you were neck deep in helping veterans transition and stand up their own businesses, correct?
I was, and it's interesting because I think a lot of people do this. I started a business to help my brothers and sisters. I've always had an affinity towards law enforcement because I was a sheriff's explorer in high school. Started my criminal justice club in my high school, um, and I wanted to help them to achieve what I achieved, which is transition out of your time of service and create a business or go into high level positions. And I was good at it. I had created a process to make that uh, possible for everybody. But what was really happening was I was trying to fill a void inside. I mean, I was deeply lost, and I was I was trying to be of service to other people, thinking that that would bandage up what was going on inside of me, and it did. There was a bandage, but the bandage wasn't big enough. And about 9 years ago, I ended up attempting to take my own life for the third time in my life. I failed. It was a very dark time because I felt like helping other people was going to solve all of my problems. And that's not necessarily true. What I was missing spiritually was an understanding of who I am, where I belong, what my purpose is, and all of those things. So I had to go through some significant grieving there. And also, I'd say the most important thing for me was I was not connected to anybody. Like all of us, I mean, at the time, I had thousands of friends on Facebook, and I felt like these were all people I could give my wallet, my house, my wife, my kids, and feel okay that they would take care of things. And the reality was, I just didn't have anybody that was actually close to me. No deep connection with anybody. So
Right.
I was seeking, who I am, who I'm supposed to be connected to, and then I wanted to be of service as well. So I had the service down, but those other two I didn't, and it was a pretty rough time.
Yeah. You had people in your circle, but not in your corner.
Absolutely.
And how much of that do you think falls on the individual, though, Joe? Because a lot of us have struggled with that, and there are networks and all that. Some of us are better at reaching out to others, uh, but oftentimes when the people are there, they're not completely aware of what the problems are. It often is something within you, the individual, where you got to eat the ego and ask for help.
Absolutely. And so my last attempt, I tried to drive my motorcycle off of a mountain, and I was surrounded by brothers and sisters. I was in a veteran oriented motorcycle organization, and we were doing a long ride across the country. And, we're really good in this community about asking each other how you're doing. I pass you in the hallway or I send you a text and say, "Hey, what's going on, man? How you doing?" And I answer back what? We all give the same answer. I'm good.
I'm good,
Life's
man.
good.
I'm good,
I
brother.
just
I'm good.
whatever it is. Uh, and the truth is, if you would just ask me a second time, I'd probably be willing to open up about what's really going on. Not
Right.
one person on that ride in that group, this group that was created for camaraderie and wind therapy and all of that stuff. We didn't really care that deeply about each other.
Right.
We said we did, and that's the thing that we do in this community is, it's like, hey, I care about you, I'll take care of you, and we're certainly there when times get super tough. But what if you can't see when it's super tough?
Yeah.
And so it is on us to open up and be willing to have a deep relationship. But deep relationships mean we have to talk about really hard shit.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, things
Yeah.
that were grief, guilt, shame, childhood experiences, really hard life experiences. And the reality is, in the military, we tend to experience really hard stuff. Um, Regardless of your MOS, is what I've learned in helping thousands of people. We deal with a lot of hard things in the military, but really what we struggle with is the things that we tell ourselves
Right.
about ourselves, other people
Right.
in the world. We tend to lie to ourselves pretty significantly. There's this
Yeah.
quote by Dostoevsky that says that lying to ourselves is more deeply ingrained than lying to others. and I can testify to that.
Yeah, yeah. Seneca had a similar quote and a few others. So it's a lot of that is the Stoic mindset. It's important stuff to realize. So Boulder Crest, 2018 when you met with Ken Falk and his crew?
Yeah, I was coming off of that last suicide attempt, and I realized and I could visualize this black hole inside my chest, and I thought being of service was the thing I needed to do. But I also, when I discovered Boulder Crest, I watched a video on the website, and Ken was talking about the concept of post traumatic growth. And as soon as he said post traumatic growth, I like collapsed on the couch and I cried for a while because I knew and I'd seen other people. There's so many examples of Vietnam vets and World War II and all of that, of people who have experienced really hard things and end up living a greater life because of it, not in spite of it. And
Yeah.
I couldn't, there was no term to describe it for me. I had experienced it in my life, but I knew that I wanted to be able to do that at will. So I applied to the job at Boulder Crest, and I went to Warrior Path. I tell people, and I absolutely mean it, that for me, Boulder Crest saved my life. Warrior Path saved my life. And then later on, Struggle Well, when we implemented that program, and I've been teaching it for a few years now, that saved my life again. And I would say permanently saved my life. I cannot imagine a time where I get back to where I was before. But I met with Ken in the interview process, just an amazing human being. Met Josh Goldberg, who's now our CEO. I'm surrounded by amazing human beings with very deep relationships because we talk about really deep stuff.
Right, right. And I think that's the key to it is, you know, Joe, a lot of guys just don't want to, they just don't want to be honest with themselves. They can BS people and have been BSing people about their problems, but they struggle with being honest with themselves. I've had that problem. I know you have. I know thousands of other veterans have. What is the key to the program at Boulder Crest in the Struggle Well program that you had referred to? Ken wrote a book, Struggle Well, and is the architect of a lot of this, but you're running that program now. What is the key to that to get veterans to be honest with themselves?
Well, first, I we haven't invented any new wisdom, right? Well, like it's a collection of thousands of years of wisdom. There are things that I like to call universal truths. You read some books and you start to see consistent messages across them. Those are universal truths.
Right.
One universal truth is if you believe that having post traumatic stress is going to cause you to live a diminished version of your old self, then that's going to happen, right? So a lot of
Right.
it for us is reframing the way that you think about yourself, other people in the world, the way that you think about struggle. Uh, First and foremost, recognize that every person on the planet struggles, has struggled, will struggle, might be struggling now. And what happens is we all walk around with a mask on and we believe that nobody else is struggling. You look at Facebook and, well, it's probably not the same anymore because to General Mattis's point, he says that victimhood is exalted in America today.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be the victim, but there's also the other side of the coin where everybody wants to show their blessed life. And the reality is people are struggling with stuff, right?
Right.
Not, part of the problem is we judge trauma and we judge struggle. And it's like, how could you ever struggle in your life? You've never experienced what I've experienced.
Right.
It's not the trauma that causes us problems. It's the aftermath of the trauma where we start to tell ourselves lies about we're not trying to lie to ourselves. Like for most of my life, I believed that I could never be of any value to any person on the planet. And I tried really hard my whole life to be of value to people, but I could never see that I was successful. So you have to create an environment of trust and connection where you and I can have a conversation around a fire. And I trust that you're not going to make fun of me when I tell you I'm struggling with something, that you're not going to judge the thing that I'm struggling with, that chances are you're going to be able to connect with the thing that I'm struggling with, and you have struggled with it or could see yourself struggling with it at some point, which is why we have these two beautiful locations, one in Bluemont, Virginia, and one in Sonoyta, Arizona, is people come to these places and immediately feel like they're in a trusted environment. And then we build trust and connection amongst the team. And then we start the process of education, trying to reframe the mind, and that stress, post-traumatic stress, does not have to be the answer. It can be post-traumatic growth. We educate you on what that process looks like, what the domains, the areas in which people grow after trauma. We teach you how to self-regulate, because if you don't self-regulate, you will self-medicate.
Right.
And self-regulation is a daily practice. It's feeding the good wolf so it can keep the bad wolf at bay. Part of the problem that we have in this community is we're constantly trying to push the bad wolf down. That's not the solution. The solution is feed the good wolf so it can keep the bad wolf at bay. Every once in a while, you got to throw the bad wolf a nugget, right? Keep it satiated. And then we do some disclosure. You have to let go of whatever shame and guilt and grief and loss and all of that, childhood experiences, military experiences, all of that. You got to let it go. Brene Brown, great author, great researcher, spent her life studying shame. She says that shame cannot survive being spoken. It can't survive empathy.
Right.
I can testify to that fact. Then we start talking about your new story. You got to get past the old story, make peace with your past, but start planning for the future and identify who it is that you're going to be for the rest of your life. And then go out and be of service. And service is last in that process, although it's iterative and it all happens at the same time. You can't be of service to other people until you take care of yourself.
Right.
And we're taught that that's selfish to look out for yourself first. But if you're not looking out for yourself, you end up doing what I was doing, which was giving people advice on how to live a life, which was the kind of life I was living, which was not very healthy.
Right. Well, it's antithetical, Joe, to the military mind. You're not worried about yourself, especially when you're in a leadership position. You need to take care of your team. You take care of your troops, and the higher up the chain you go, the larger that responsibility comes. So self-care is not a term that any of us have ever really known, which means we're probably not terribly good at it either. I know a lot of senior officers and staff NCOs that struggled with that. They appeared to be, you and I discussed one earlier that's going to be on the show later, two-star general, that went through a pretty severe scenario. And it's just something that's not taught. But it can be very debilitating, not only on active duty, but particularly when you get out, for the same reasons you just mentioned, that you're not in control anymore, and in this, you're in an entirely different environment where you don't quite have the support structure. You think people are in your circle, but are they in your corner? And then it makes it that much more difficult if you carry that mindset. So tell us a little bit about how people get to Boulder Crest. You've got do you refer to it as a campus or a site in Virginia and Arizona? How do they pick one, and how do they get selected to come see you?
So let me first just talk about the programs. Our first and foremost is family rest and reconnection. If you're a combat vet and you want to take your family and have a vacation in Boulder Crest, Virginia, or in Bluemont, Virginia, which is northwest of Dulles Airport, or Sonoyta, Arizona, which is about 45 minutes southwest of or southeast of Tucson. You have to get yourself there and bring your own food, but you can come and stay for free 2 to 7 nights a year. You just go on the website and book it like you would an Airbnb, but without a credit card.
Right.
And our website should be very easy to navigate, but the Family Rest and Reconnection program is a great program. Second is Warrior Path, which is kind of an intervention program. It's still training. It's not a clinical setting. It's combat veterans who are helping combat veterans to live a great life.
Right.
You go on the website, apply. Once you apply, we will interview you. We'll do a Zoom call. We'll try to assess, whether or not the program's a good fit for you, because we don't want to waste your time, whether or not you're a good fit for our program. And then we could send you anywhere around the country. We have 13 teams around the country that are delivering our Warrior Path program. It could be Virginia, it could be Arizona. We're in South Carolina, Florida, Maine, Washington State. I mean, we're in a lot of different places, plus mobile training teams that go out and do it. We would work with you on timing and location.
Right.
So the first step is apply. And after that, we'll figure out best timing and best place for you. And then for Struggle Well, Right now we're focused on first responders, and this started. It started with the mass shooting in Las Vegas at the concert,
Right.
when there were a lot of people who were struggling deeply because of that. So we started Struggle Well, based off the book Struggle Well: Thriving in the Aftermath of Trauma. And we're doing that all around the country. I think we're really active in about 20 different states, and that's really us doing a preventative program so that folks don't need the intervention program. And the only way to really be preventative is to change cultures in organizations, to
Right.
have a culture of trust and connection with other people, so that you can talk about your experiences and your struggles whenever you have them, and they don't sit and fester over time. But we're also doing some struggle well training for active military, reserve, and National Guard as well, and that's expanding pretty rapidly. So those are programs. The Struggle Well program, if you're a veteran but you're also a first responder and you want to bring Struggle Well to your agency, again, go to the website and you can fill out a form there, and we'll reach out to you and we'll have conversations about bringing it to your agency.
So all of these services, Joe, if I understood you correctly, Warrior Path and Struggle Well are at no cost to the individuals, even
No
if they're
cost.
even if they're civilian first responders.
Correct.
Correct. So the mobile training teams that you have and all of that, they are still able to provide those services at no cost to anyone.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Yep.
So that brings me to my next question. You must be looking for support, donors and that type of thing. What can we do to help you out to reach out to America and let them know that you need their continued support?
Well, I appreciate that. Obviously, as a nonprofit, we would love to have some donations. Pretty easy to donate on the website, but that's not the only way that you can support a nonprofit. Volunteering, like for instance, during a Warrior Path, anybody can volunteer. We'll go through a background check and things like that. But you can come to the ranch or the retreat in Virginia and volunteer in the kitchen and help our chefs, nurture the bodies and souls of the people that are going through the program. You could do like a corporate volunteer day and bring your organization in and
Right.
help paint fences or rake or whatever.
Right.
Um, but probably more importantly is spread the word, so that we can get to the people who need the help. And I think that's the primary thing I want to push today is let's share the word. If you know somebody who's struggling, and recognize that everybody struggles. If you know somebody who could use the program, let's get them signed up for the program. The vast majority of, and a lot of the reason people don't hear about Boulder Crest, is because we don't do big marketing efforts to promote our programs. Most of our referrals come from word of mouth of people who've gone through the program. The program's been
Right.
transformative for them, life-saving for them, life-changing for them, and they go share it with their buddies,
Right.
because we know that there's a significant ripple effect. If you come to the program and it's transformative for you, you're going to go out and live the life that you deserve to live, and people are going to say, "Hey, what happened to you? I want to live that too." And
Right.
then they come to the program. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Joe, we appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure to have you on today. We appreciate your candor and sharing your story. You are an inspiration. You are a leader in our community, and we're happy to hear that you're in a position of influence with Boulder Crest, because you're helping people get to a good place, and you're helping families as well, and we certainly appreciate it. So there you have it, America. Joe Wood from the Boulder Crest Foundation, showing us all how to stay in the fight. Thanks for joining us on Vet Summit. We'll see you next time.
thank you, Brian.